City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded June 5, 2024.
Let's call the June 5th, 2024 Board of Park Commissioners meeting to order. Roll, please.
Alder Broderick.
Here.
Alder Boozy.
Here.
Breckman.
Here.
Disher.
Here.
Gladusky.
Here.
Alder Kiemer.
Here.
McDonald.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Shabilsky.
Here.
Sorensen's excused. Wynn.
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, thank you. Item number 2, approval of the May 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Comments, questions? Looking for a motion?
I will move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay. No questions? All those in favor, signify by saying yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, a request by the Heart of Wisconsin Pickleball Association to donate 1 automatic AED to the city of Stevens Point at Mead Park. Mr. Kramer?
I can give a background on this. So the Heart of Wisconsin Pickleball Association is a non-membership due collecting organization. So they basically have a number of volunteers that had kind of a board that organizes, as well as they have a group that play every day of the week in different locations, including at Mead Park. So they have recently written a grant and actually received already the AED that is in the packet, as well as the, I'll call it enclosure cabinet. And they basically said, city, you can have it, with some conditions essentially of basically saying we would put it up near the pickleball courts, basically by the entrance. It could be used by anyone that needed it. So that came to our attention. We basically said, let's meet, let's go over some different logistics about what if somebody took it in the middle of the night? You know, how do you lock it? How does that work? We reached out to a couple other communities. We did find a different cabinet that is used in La Crosse County that has a keypad that you punch in. And how it works is if you call 911, they say, oh, there's an AED. It's on the geospatial stuff that they have on their end of the 911 callers with the pings of the cell tower data. And they can basically tell you, hit this code, it's over there, and get the AED. So we talked to the Heart of Wisconsin Pickleball Group, and the cabinet's more expensive. They already received this one. So they've come back and said they'd like to put a padlock with a code on the cabinet. We pulled the fire department in and just said, can you work with the communication center for Portage County, see if that's possible. They have come back and confirmed if we give them the code, if you called 911 in Mead Park or near Mead Park, they'd be able to give the code out to anyone in an emergency to say, hey, you can use it. So that eliminates really our concern about vandalism, and it also allows us to know that there's a lock on it, someone can't steal the pads, they're in an actual 911 situation. So the agreement that's in the packet basically calls out that we'd accept the donation. There is some financial requirements. Essentially, the group has said because they don't collect dues, they're not willing to sign the agreement to say they would pay for half the supplies in the future. We did ask. We just said, hey, a lot of times organizations would say, well, you know, continue to maintain it. And they just came back and said, you certainly can ask us, and we'll participate where we can. But in this agreement, they're saying the city would take that on as our own cost. So I did put in the packet, my recommendation is it's a great life-saving tool. I think the more these things are used, especially with the high-risk activity, given some, you know, cardiovascular fitness and the age demographic that plays a lot of pickleball, you certainly could see this get used, and across the country, they're going in quite a bit. As long as the park commission would be comfortable knowing that we would be taking on, you know, if let's just say it got used, you know, pads are going to be somewhere around that $50 to $80, and then a battery, if it goes out, can be up to a couple hundred. They do get multiple years, though, if you don't need to use it. So one other thing you might be interested is how many AEDs do we have currently? We do have one at the rec center that we maintain. We also wrote a grant 3 years ago to get one for Gerke, so we have one up in the press box should something happen that the medical staff, which they always have one usually on the field, but we have one too in case a crowd member or something else came up. And then we take the one from Gerke actually to Riverfront Rendezvous is how we use it. Then we also have one at the pool. So there's 3 in our system that we use for already. So this would become the 4th, and not overwhelming costs, and it is certainly a generous offer that they've made to us, but I certainly wanted to present to all of you to say, are you comfortable if we take on that maintenance? This agreement basically says we could, quote unquote, break the agreement and offer it back to the group. Probably highly unlikely, but with donations, a lot of times if it's not written down, we don't remember what the terms were. So that's why this was drafted, just to kind of encapsulate what they're proposing. So I can answer any questions other than that.
Maybe I missed this, but is it new? Is it?
Brand new.
It is brand new.
Yep, brand new. And it's the same brand as what we have, so it would be the same battery and same pads and things too.
Okay.
So.
All right. Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, did the fire department have any concerns about the need to call 911 and then enter a code in the slowing the process down or reducing the effectiveness in any way? Like, I mean, I'm assuming, like, because it does, like, first thing I'm like, oh, it requires you to have a cell phone to call 911 rather than just doing the thing. But people are probably going to be calling 911 anyway in a heart attack situation. But they didn't have any issues with the logistics of that.
No, so great question. So the pickleball group would actually have the code. So the primary users, I failed to mention that, they'll have the code
Okay.
because they're buying it so that they have it on themselves.
So it's not the only way to get into it is to call 911.
Correct. And we'll also have the code. But to your point, right, in the Red Cross first aid AED training that they teach you, typically they tell the responder, someone call 911,
Right.
get an AED. So even in the training, they weren't worried about the sequence because everyone's usually on the phone with 911. And based on what they're seeing in the field, other than a trained medical personnel that might say right away, we need an AED, usually people are listening and starting compressions and things first before they go to the AED. So it is easier when it's fully accessible, but given the outdoor complexity to it, and they said, usually most people have a cell phone or quick access to it. They weren't as concerned that the code would get out right away, and the AED would be within, say 30 seconds, 45 seconds, versus the couple-minute response time for someone to come from an ambulance. So, but yeah, great question. The group would have it though.
Cool.
Will there be signage as far as calling 911?
Yes, vinyl stickers on the cabinet, and there will also be an AED symbol on the top. So, yeah, it'll say right on it for use, 911. Also, say someone doesn't know it's there, what they said is that it'll actually be listed. So someone calls in the near vicinity and they need an AED, if they think it's in a reasonable amount of space, they'll tell them there's one so far from you that they can get to too.
Are they doing any training for the Pickleball Association members on how to use it?
We did not get into the training now, but I would see that probably being the logical next step. The fire department does do different education seminars, so they work with our staff and stuff too when we train our people.
Right.
So, but we actually did not talk about that, but that's probably a great idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
General comment, I guess. I'd love to see something in the agreement about just making sure that the lock works at least once a year, because that is a concern, using like a physical padlock versus the locking cabinet. Like it can rust, it can stick. Would hate to, be there, have the code ready to go and can't get the cabinet open. Like I think just making sure we're clear on regular maintenance there would be important.
Very fair.
All right, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, looking for a motion?
Yeah, I think I'd move to approve this, and I think it's a great, if it saved one life in 10 years, it's well worth it, so.
We okay having the city pick up the cost?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do you have a
Second.
All right, second. All right, all those in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, master plan development for Gerke and Zenoff Parks.
Okay, so this is kind of a continuation item. So those of you that have been on the board more than a year remember that last year we completed the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan update that we do to stay grant eligible and kind of set the course based on what the community wants for the park system. So within that comprehensive plan, there's a lot of things that we're planning to do, and obviously we try to accomplish what we can, but 2 parks that are listed in the plan are Gerke as well as Zenoff for master planning. It's kind of the first element that was listed, and in the packet I gave you what is kind of the high level the corp says is here's some things that could be done, but the master planning exercise would be actually laying out what fits, what are some costs, how you fund it, things of that nature. The reason I'm bringing this forward or asking for Park Commission's feedback, if we should move forward on it, is since the corp was adopted, we have written the grant and we've done the preliminary design for the new garage for Forestry and Police Department here in Gerke, as well as we've talked about doing I got to admit somebody here on Zoom, I'm sorry. We've talked about if that happened that we would relocate the rec center offices. When we started that discussion, the Boys and Girls Club had already engaged and spoke with us in the mayor's office about if we were to ever vacate the building that we're in currently, they would have interest in expansion potentially in the city, inside the Gerke Park. If you actually back up to when the city agreed to let the Boys and Girls Club build in Gerke, there's a term in the lease agreement that says they have first right of refusal on our building. Fast forward even further, you look at what we've done with the master planning and kind of the construction project on the Willett. There's been talk about what happens with the Parker building long term, if the 2 softball diamonds are in the right spot, At one time, there was even talk of another turfed football field or multi-use field back here on West Willett. If you go back even to, I think, 2006, there was talk of an enclosed football field, soccer field, lacrosse field for winter. So there's been a lot of ideas in Gerke Park. Our corp also talks about the need to maybe get another access point someday to, I'm going to say the street wrong, I think it's Price Street, is that right?
Price.
Yeah, Price, okay. So there's a number of things we've never really designed and got cost estimates on, but all of that was kind of part of our master planning process that we wanted to accomplish. The reason the Xenoff one is listed, or I'm asking for Park Commission to consider too, is that we've always had discussions, and Matt, you can speak to this as well, that over time, if there was ever room for a fourth field out there or other expansions as things have changed with the youth being more involved out at Xenoff, as well as, we've already started talking about what's the future if numbers change compared to the youth and the adults, or if SPSA chooses to do something different with an organization and how the youth work together. Not only that Point Fast Pitch currently plays on 2 diamonds here in Gerke, but how do those 2 parks work together if we would relocate things? Could we work with the Moose Lodge? What's the Moose Lodge's plans in the long term? So really what I'm looking for from Park Commission is saying, these don't have to be fast processes, but to get the public's input with community meetings, to have the Park Commission weigh in on it, as well as adopt things and have them queued up for future capital budgets. It's time to really start on this with a couple of the parks so that over the next 5 years when we go to update that comprehensive outdoor rec plan, we've got some things we've accomplished and can really, figure out what our projects are for the long haul. What's the cost to do something like this? I'm going to estimate, based on some of my conversations with Rattler, who did our corp, that this is going to come around somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 total. How I would propose to pay for that is we have a cell tower in both parks, and the conditions of the cell towers, the money supports those parks. So this would be reasonable. It would be about a month's worth of rent from each location to take care of that, and those funds would be available. How we would work this process, if Park Commission was okay with it, is we would engage with Rattler, after this meeting, and then we would start this process in the late summer, going into fall, probably adopt something in early next year, and then it would become part of the 26 and 27 capital discussions and so forth. Now, some things could, let's just say the plan we know is probably going to show the footprint for the garage. If that grant goes through, that would happen soon. But building new diamonds and ball fields and things, those could be whenever funding opportunities line up. They could be down the road a long ways. But before we say yes or no to plans or move things around, or we have user groups say we like to do upgrades, we do like to lay different things out, and try to see how it fits. The Moose Lodge idea, I can tell you too, is really, it's pie in the sky, right? Like we would never push an organization out or anything like that, but we also like to engage with some of our neighbors in those cases to say, hey, how does this work for you? That one just being, kind of transparent on it. We have a really large parking lot there that we don't use for 7 months of the year or 6 months of the year. And then they've got a couple different parking lots that they use frequently, 1 or 2 days every month, right, when they have big bingo events and stuff. So we think there might be some synergies there if we talk with them to say, hey, could we work together with some of the lots, and would that free up some space for another diamond for the kids, or things of that nature. So all it would be is discussions in the plan. The community would have to say we support it too, and then it would all be contingent on funding in the future. So it does not have to be these 2 parks. I included in the packet kind of what Rattler gave us as kind of a next 5 to 7 year plan. We could pick out a couple others. I just would say these are 2 of the parks that have the most user groups that are hitting them and touching them, and we have some active projects going as well as an active grant. So it seemed like 2 community parks would seem to be a good spot to start. We are working on neighborhood parks too. As you know, we're putting the bathroom in over here at Saramer, so that neighborhood plan's coming together. Groholski is also being constructed right now, so it's not that we've ignored neighborhoods, but community parks do serve the entire community, so it's reasonable to say that we would start with 2 planning processes for those 2. So my recommendation would just be, these aren't huge dollar items. We're not looking to amend anything or go to the Common Council for any additional funding. I'd say we'd move forward with this with what's underneath your jurisdiction. And then we'd look to, have plans ready for, late this year, early next year, and then certainly be following up with granting and funding opportunities with the Common Council, Finance Committee, and our group down the road whenever those times would come up. So that's my long-winded way of saying, we'd recommend, if you're okay with it, I'm looking for approval or guidance from the Park Commission to say, hey, let's go down this process and move forward with these master plan.
All right, thank you. Any comments?
Well, just curious, 2 gentlemen on my right here are probably more knowledgeable on the future needs of ballparks here, and if you guys would weigh in on that. And
I mean, eventually it'd be nice to have, granted, we're not going to kick the Moose out, but it'd be nice down the road if the Moose ever said, you know what, our building is old, deteriorating, and to be able to say, well, we have a plan. and something that we've discussed and gone on, and that you could add parks to and add fields to, and so if Kirky ever goes away or something happens within the other parks, now you have a complex that has multiple diamonds instead of just the 3.
Yeah, and from the youth baseball perspective, I absolutely would love to see some concepts or something on how we could utilize that space, like you said, like a complex. I mean, there's definite need for youth-sized fields, and if we could do that, something like that there, make things more centralized. I mean, right now we're playing all over the city, which is great, but the kids like to be at Zenith with the turf fields and the concessions and everything else. So, yeah, if we could make something like that in the long term happen, that'd be great.
We comfortable with those parks that he requested specifically?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Looking for a motion then to approve?
I'll motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Director's report.
I'll just add before the director's report. So what I'll do then is I'll work with Brother to get that process rolling. Sometimes we've even had subcommittees of Park Commission members get involved. I would see both of you playing a vital role from a user group standpoint, and certainly any other Park Commissioner that would like to be part of that process. It'll come here for all of your feedback and things as we go too. But anyone that's interested in those 2 parks especially, and certainly let me know. You can be a part of some of the meetings and stuff too as we get into that process. So. Okay, going to the director's report next. I just have a couple items tonight. First, if you recall, we had a park superintendent vacancy. We did go through a full recruitment process, ended up interviewing several, but we actually ended up selecting an internal candidate, Paul Zeman, who's been with us for 24 years, stood out as kind of our best candidate, and he started actually shortly after the interview process. I think it was the 20th of May was his first day. So he's a couple weeks into it, doing a great job. We're lucky because he's familiar with our park system and a lot of the people in it, but now he's learning a whole different realm of how that works. So he's been the arborist for 24 years and very well liked, very well respected and connected in the department, and people have been very happy with him at the helm of the Parks Division. With him being promoted or essentially getting that position, it did open up the arborist position, so kind of the number 2 in command underneath Todd's area. That's been posted now. We'll be starting that interview process most likely here sometime in June. So we had one new face that came back early in May as a park technician, a familiar face now that went to park superintendent. We'll see how the arborist one shakes out. It could be an internal, could be an external. All depends upon that interview process. In terms of projects, we are in full swing. So we've had a lot of rain, but if you've driven by Sarimer Park, you've seen that project is really taking shape in a hurry. A lot of the columns and all the masonry is done. They actually put on a bunch of the joists on the ceiling or the roof today, so you can actually see kind of the overall size and footprint. And actually, Alder Kiemer and I have been working on kind of the sign package that'll be going on the building and getting the contractors to talk to each other. So you'll see that really taking shape over the next 4 to 5 weeks when the stone starts to go on the outside. And we're still planning for something around that Labor Day being done, probably earlier, but somewhere in there, a ceremony of some sort. Similar to Groholski, you'll see we've done all the excavation. They actually started pouring concrete there, but our stormwater ponds that aren't designed to hold a lot of water, we've had so much rain, they've actually had water in them pretty steadily here. So just an odd year with how much rain we're getting. But that project is scheduled to be done in mid-August, so we're on schedule for that too. Once they have the concrete down, they're pouring the footings for the solar canopied shelter. So that's kind of the next phase of construction once the concrete work is done before they'll pour asphalt and build the path. That park will not be seeded until August 15th when we start to see moisture increase in the morning because there's no irrigation out there. So we're going to kind of have that site sit for a little bit afterwards until they can actually seed it down just to get the grass to establish. So both parks will get new signs. The one at Groholski will just be a standard park sign, but the one at Sarimer is looking like it'll likely have a matching stone base. We're not for sure, but it's heading most likely that way. So that'll be out then on Clark Street, and you'll be able to see it from both directions, and it'll match the building itself. So those projects are very visible, and lots of people talking about them. We are about 98% done with the Willet. So they're doing their final 4 or 5 punch list items. You'll see the facade now is completed on the outside of the building, and we've actually been holding meetings and things in the Skyward room. The big visible item left yet is the external sponsor signs. So Skyward's 2 signs, one on the field side, one on the external side will be coming on there hopefully in the next 10 days or so. Aspirus has a logo on the medical room side that'll be going in too. And then the KB Willet sign actually has to go on the front yet too. So those things will be happening hopefully over the next 10 days or so. They're on photo eyes, and it'll kind of be the icing on the cake of the exterior. We are still working on the external arch. If you drive by Minnesota, in front of the stadium, you'll see the 4 concrete pillars or foundations have gone in. They'll start laying the masonry for that over the next couple weeks. When that finishes, you'll see the steel kind of archway that goes over it, and then there'll be donor plaques on both sides of that. That'll recognize the 2008 donors as well as the 2022 and beyond donors for this most recent project. There's additional hope in the future to do a west side one that matches, but that'll likely be down the road if Tim Sherrill's able to help raise some more money for that project. So we have several small things going on. I say small, but they're still important projects. At Veterans Park, John Kodrowski is working with us on a water fountain install. So right now, if you actually drive by that park, there's a single push button on a pipe, water pipe, drinking fountain, but there's nothing else, right? It's just in the middle, kind of floating. Put in many, many, many years ago. John's actually bought a nice water fountain for it that'll get moved up to the front. He does a lot of that work as a volunteer. We'll be helping him, so you'll see that project go in here sometime over the summer. He's also looking at putting in some Adirondack chairs on the hillside behind the flagpole that would look across at the train, so if you wanted to admire the train park. So we'll be helping him with that slab as well. And again, John's got a fund for that park that he's been paying for all those improvements. We just help with some labor. He's also planning to put a new light pole by the train itself that'll match that era of the train. And that's another thing that he's bought and have been funding for that part too. So again, another great volunteer of the park system that's doing a lot of good. We'll be helping with those 2 projects as we get rolling. One other grant that a member of our staff wrote is for bicycle parking by the Piffner band shell. So near the Cultural Commons, I'll call it to the northwest along the trail, you'll see 6 bike hitches go in sometime after Riverfront, so we don't end up excavating it during the busy holiday or event season. But that'll have the bike hitches, because when we do have concerts there, there's bikes tied to trees all over. So that'll be the next project that goes in. And Steve McKay from our team with Trevor Rourke wrote that grant, and they did get that funded through the Community Foundation. So numerous other small things, in terms of mowing and putting up different signage and stuff, but that's kind of some of the newer stuff that's coming with people moving around different positions. So it's our busiest season. We're certainly, the Memorial Day lift is always our biggest to try to get things mowed, because that's the first time people hit the parks. And the pool actually opened June 1st too. That's another really big lift for us. So we had a little bit of poor weather on Saturday. Sunday was a real nice day. And we did check, this is the earliest we've been able to open, just due to how well Greg and Ann recruited volunteers, or I should say lifeguards. We haven't opened this early since 1995. Typically, we've been a second or mid of the 3rd week of June, but they were able to open June 1st this year because of returning guards. So kudos to them. And again, once it's open, then the Boys and Girls Club and everybody can start coming over. Even PJ's brought over a class for the first time in many, many years, because the pool was open during a school day yet too. So additional revenue that came in on that regard. So otherwise, we hope everyone can get to a park here. Levitt Amp and stuff will begin this week too. So we'll have a lot of people down in the park spaces, and it'll be a busy midsummer. Usually, as a reminder, we do not typically meet in July, because Riverfront Rendezvous is the same week as what Park Commission is.
You got something going on?
Yeah, a little bit. So if anyone's around on the 4th, 5th, and 6th, definitely come on down for the 4th anniversary. Should be a busy weekend. So that schedule is on our website now. So we just posted all of the information, and fireworks will be on Saturday, the 6th, around 9:45, right there at dusk. So,
Thank you.
that's report.
Any questions or?
I have one question. I was biking the Green Circle yesterday, and I was going to get some water out by the boat landing at Bucol. That wasn't working.
Really?
Yeah.
We will get. It should have been. I'll find a way. The whole fountain, or just the water bottle station?
The water bottle, and then I couldn't get out either of the fountains either, pushing the button.
I'm wondering if maybe the valve didn't get turned on. There's water in the bathroom. Maybe they didn't turn the valve on yet. I'll find out.
All right, very good. Any other comments or questions? Being none, give a
Motion to approve, or motion to adjourn?
Very good. All those in favor, I guess we have a second?
Sure.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.